All right, so we're going to look at the t-distribution. One new thing is the degrees of freedom up here, and it says the degrees of freedom corresponds to the number of sample values that can vary after certain restrictions have been imposed on all the data values. Okay, the degrees of freedom for our t-distribution is always going to be equal to our sample size minus 1. So if you have a sample size of 20, we're going to have 19 degrees of freedom. So below that, we're going to find all these different critical values, and we're going to do a drawing very similar to before because the t-distribution looks very similar to a normal distribution. So let's first figure out the degrees of freedom for each one of these. And then I'm going to show you how to find it on the table. So for a sample size of 10, your degrees of freedom are, for a sample size of 20, your degrees of freedom are 19. And then for a sample size of 30, your degrees of freedom are 29. All right, on the top of your t-distribution, it tells you we have the area in one tail and the area in two tails. So the normal distribution looks like at area to the left, right? This one just tells you what is the area either in one of the tails or in both of the tails. So when we look at confidence intervals, we always have two tails. So for example, let's say we have 5% in the two tails. What's the confidence level for that? What's the area in the middle? 5 in both tails. 95%. It's 95%. So I'm just going to label this up here. This goes with a 95% confidence interval. Now, when I label it, I only label it for chapter 7 because in chapter 8, sometimes we have one tail, sometimes we have two tails. So the things are going to change a little bit in chapter 8. But for chapter 7, we can label it, and then whenever I'm looking for 95% confidence, I can go straight to my column that's labeled with 95%. Okay, so this one has 10% in both tails, in the two tails together, right? So what's the area in the middle? 90. It's the total because there's 5% in each, right? So you can either look at the area in one tail or the area in two tails. This last column has 20% in the two tails combined. So what's in the middle? Okay, how about the one before? There's 2% in both tails combined. 98%. And then the last one is 1%, which gives you 99. So now I'm finding critical values. Okay. Notice over here, this is not the sample size, but it's the degrees of freedom. So the first question asks us to, it had a sample size of 10, which is degrees of freedom of 9. So you're going to go down to 9, go over to the middle column, which is the 95%. So what's our first critical value? 2.264. No, 262. Okay, then you're going to go down to 19 degrees of freedom. And what is that? 2.093. And then the last one is going down to 29 degrees of freedom. And that one is 2. Okay. So do the same thing for each one of these. So over here we have 90% degree confidence. 90%, that was that fourth column over here, right? Same thing. We have the same sample sizes given. So we're going to just go to the corresponding degrees of freedom.